Hey guys, so something happened in the crude oil market today. We saw oil prices fall to zero, and there was a lot of confusion, a lot of noise around it. And I just want to provide an explainer video to tell you this is exactly what happened in the crude oil market today. Now, you have to first of all understand that crude oil is sold at different prices in different markets because there are several types of crude oil. We refer to them as crude grades. Nigeria itself has about 20 or more crude grades from different fields, and they all sell at different prices. You have Bonny Light, you have Focados, you have Pennington Light, you have Yorkri, E-Bulk, and so on. And as well, pretty much every other oil producer has their own crude grades. So there isn't really a uniform price for all crude in the world. So you can't say there's a global crude oil price. But what we have instead are benchmarks by which the crude oil grades we have around the world are priced. Now there are two major ones that are reported. You have the West Texas Intermediate, which is the benchmark reference price for crude oil that is produced primarily in North America, preferably in the US. And then you also have the Brent, which is the benchmark for crude oil that's produced in pretty much the rest of the world. So that's Nigeria included, to some extent, Arabian markets as well. They've also tried to create their own benchmarks, the DME crude, but that hasn't really taken off. So you have the Brent and you have the WTI. Those are the two prices you typically would hear. And then the way crude oil also works is the sense that if a refiner needs crude oil for his operations in May, he won't buy the crude oil in May. He will have to take delivery of the crude oil in April. And for him to take delivery of the crude oil in April, don't forget that crude oil could be coming from anywhere in the world. So the contract for that crude oil that will be delivered in April against operations in May would have been sold in March. So on the 15th of every month, a new crude oil contract is signed between the buyer and the seller, and then that crude oil is delivered at the end of that contract period on the 20th of the next month. So you have a month and 5 days within which to make the delivery of that particular crude oil grade. So if you buy a contract as a refiner or even as a financial investor that is trying to invest in crude oil to get profit, you are likely to receive physical delivery of the crude oil on the 20th of the next month. If you don't want to receive that physical delivery, what do? You sell your contract for either a higher price or a lower price. So that was what happened today. Today is the 20th of April. WTI, which is the reference benchmark for US crude, was expiring today. The contracts for WTI were expiring today. And due to the oversupply in the market currently, there is literally almost no storage anywhere. So a lot of financial investors that bought WTI because they thought after the OPEC deal, there was going to be correction in the market, oil prices were going to rise and they were going to make a lot of profit. Financial investors who have no storage for crude oil, they realize that, look, if I don't get out of this contract today, I will have to provide storage for the physical crude oil to be delivered into. And that's the way it works. You will have to pay a penalty if you don't have a storage. If the seller has to provide a storage for you, then there's an additional charge and so many other things you don't want to pay. Which is why crude oil prices fell so bad to the point where they went into negative, because the owners of the contract were willing to even pay buyers who had storage to take the physical delivery of them. So that contract expires today. By tomorrow, the WTI contract you'll be seeing will be the June contract, which will expire on the 20th of May next month for delivery for operations in June. So that's how the market works, and that was what happened today. So if you look at the price for WTI tomorrow, it won't be zero, it won't be negative, it will be 22 or 23 or whatever the market is choosing to sell it at. So that's what happened in the market today. Does this have an implication for Brent, which is what affects Nigerian crude? Because don't forget, Bloomberg reported that Nigeria's crude oil was selling for less than $20 for much of last week, and we're seeing that there's been some recovery towards the $20 range. But is some of that weakness on WTI going to feed into the crude oil, into the Brent market? I think so. The fact is that this sale that has happened at really ridiculous prices, really low prices, has made it possible for a lot of crude oil demand to be satisfied at very low rates. Consequently, it will to some extent quell or reduce the appetite for higher price in Brent and other high-grade crude categories. So what would happen? We might see some weakness going forward in Brent and definitely in Bonnie Light as well. And then generally for the global market, we have to recognize the fact that there is still a major overhang of crude oil over serious surplus in the market that hasn't cleared. You have cargoes in ships that have not been cleared. You have countries still pumping at max volume. Then you have to recognize the fact that the OPEC deal is only meant to kick in May. So there's still a lot of time for countries to pump and for countries to adjust. So there's still that oversupply. So we still have a couple of months before we actually clear out the overhang in the market, before we start to see prices recover back towards $40. And this will have strong implications for our FAC meetings, how much we are available to share for salaries and so on. So this is what I would encourage you if you're watching this. This is not a good time to start thinking about tying your money down in markets. Hold your cash. Keep it in savings, keep it in stronger currencies like the USD. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me in the comment section. I'm out.